Alrighty, looking for that red light. There we go. So welcome everybody to week 4, I believe, of this training. We are talking about Toolkit Part 2 today, and that includes making discussions, making assignments, and making quizzes. We will not be talking about how to grade each of those items because we do have a separate week for that in week 6. So we won't be really talking about that too much, though I will show you where the button is to grade each of these as we go through. But I guess we'll just get started. So we have talked about in the past 2 weeks, there are like 2 methods of building out your course. So you can go into these tools directly, so your assignments, discussions, and quizzes, or you can go to the content tool and create them that way. So what I'm going to do today is actually go through the tools, but just know that if you go through content, it's the same setup, same settings. But if you do go in through these tools, you will need to pull them into the content tool. So I'll show you how to do that too. We'll do all of the things. So I'm starting off in my course, and I'm going to start off with discussions because that one is the most different compared to Moodle, as we have discussed before. So I'm going to click on discussions and open that up. So when you get to the discussions tool, we have a couple different pieces that I've briefly mentioned, but I'll reiterate. So we have our big text item, as Kat and I call it. So this one's called exploration, but it is a forum in discussions tool. So the forum is actually a category, essentially, in the discussions tool, and it houses discussion topics. So for example, I have this one called the writing process, and then I have a test one. So these are both discussion topics, and then students can reply to those topics. As you can see over here, there are posts. So when I go into the topic itself, students actually create threads to reply to the topic prompt. So I have 3 different threads that were created, and then students can go in and reply to those threads. So it does look very similar to Moodle. It just has more terminology. So if you see like forum and topic thrown around, you know what's going on. But I'm going to bop back to my discussions here. You can have multiple forums. So it's really good if you have different types of discussions. So if you do like a journaling discussion forum, you can have a journal forum. You can also have weekly discussions if you want to house all of your weekly discussions in one forum. It's just a good way to kind of break it down, but you do need at least one forum, and then within that forum, you need one topic. So you can just have it called class discussions, and that's your forum, and you can add all of your topics to that one, or you can get a little creative and make multiple forums just to organize. So what you will do when you create a forum is click New, and then New Forum, and it'll open up this nice little new forum page where you just add your title, which is pretty self-explanatory. So I will have something like, I already have exploration. I'm going to go with a test forum because I'm not feeling very improv today. So you can see here right under the title, it says create a new topic in this forum with the same title. So if you're just making one forum for your whole course and you don't feel like you're going to make other ones, you can automatically have it create a new topic with that same title if you want. You don't have to. So you can scroll right past that and go to the description where you will describe what this forum like houses. So this can be directions for how discussions in this forum will conduct. So if it is something like a question forum, you can be like, make sure to post your question threads in the topic and make sure to upvote the ones you like, things like that. So kind of basic instructions. So you can type whatever you like here. And all of these tools that we've seen in the announcements text box and the email text box, they're all available to you. So that means you can do your video notes and you can add your images and you can link to other resources and assignments and quizzes. You can do everything that we've done before in this little text box. You'll also see these options at the bottom. So these apply on a forum level. So every topic that you create in this forum will have these options checked. So you can also change these options at the topic level. So you don't have to decide right now if you want every topic in your forum to allow anonymous posts. You can do it topic by topic. But this is if you want something kind of general for any topic that you create in this forum. So these include allowing anonymous posts, which gives students the option to post anonymously, but they can also just post with their names. You can also moderate posts as they come in, but that kind of requires a little more work from you because you actually have to check the posts before they're actually posted. Then we have users must start a thread before they can read and reply to other threads. So I believe this is kind of like the Moodle Q&A forum, so they can't see anyone else's until they post their own. So that's one option that's really popular. And then this one is specific to forums. It's display forum description and topics. So if you have a description that you really like and you want to apply to each topic you create in this forum, you can check this off, and then whatever you typed here or added will be in every description for each topic in that forum. So that's up to you. But once you create your forum and you're ready to go, you can actually save and add a topic right from here, since you need at least one topic, or you can just save and close it and add a topic later. So I'm going to save it and add a topic, and it's going to open up the new topic page. So whenever you go to the discussions tool and you want to create a new topic, this is what you'll see. You'll just click new and then new topic, and you'll get the option to choose your forum. And notice here that you can also create a new one here. So if you're sitting here and in the moment you want to create a new forum, you have that option. And you can also go back and edit these topics at any time to change the forum that they're in if you accidentally placed it somewhere. So it's not set in stone. So we have our 3 forums that I've created, but because I clicked save and add topic, it's defaulting to the forum I just made. So I will keep that there. And then you add a title for your topic. So we have text topic 1. And again, we have our description box with the same tools. So again, you could use those. So then we also have our options, like I mentioned. Notice that there are only 3 because it doesn't have that include forum description in all topics, because now we're in a topic. So you can allow your anonymous posts. You can have a moderator approving posts, which is you. And then users must start a thread before they can reply to other ones. So I'm actually going to give that one a click just because, yeah, I want other people to post their own stuff instead of being influenced by other posts first. Now, something different with the topics is this rate posts area down here. It's not like the Moodle ratings if you use those to kind of grade Moodle discussion posts. These are actually more for people interacting with the topics. So if you have a question and answer topic and you want people to upvote any questions that they also have that someone's posted, then this would be a good chance to use the upvote only rating scheme. So you would see, and students would also see, these little upvote icons next to any topic here, and they can upvote anything that they agree with. So it's a good way to kind of gauge which questions students have instead of having a bunch of threads with the same question in it. Other ones include the upvote and downvote rating scheme. So that would be like your thumbs up, thumbs downs. 5-star rating scheme, which is 1 to 5 stars, and then no ratings at all. So this doesn't have any bearing on grades or anything. Assessment is a completely different thing in discussions, but this is kind of a nice way to have students and yourself interact with topics in a different way. Now, with these discussion topics, it's very important to scroll back up and look for the other tabs, because what I've done plenty of times is click save and close, and then you didn't actually fulfill all of the topic requirements. So you have a topic, but maybe you didn't set restrictions yet or mark it for assessment if you wanted to. So in our restrictions tab, we have hide from users, which is good if you are still working on this and you don't want it to appear to students just yet. Because even though we didn't put it in the content tool, students can still click on the discussions tool in the nav bar and find this discussion. So if you don't want them to see it just yet, you can give that a check so you can work on it without people poking around in it. You can also set your availability dates. So you can set a start date of a certain date and then an end date as well, but they do not, they kind of just have the discussion up for that period of time. And my understanding is that it then disappears. Whereas if you use the locking options, it still appears, but students can no longer post in it after the topic is locked. So if you had that sort of thing in mind where you want it open for a week and then no one responds after that, then you want to do the lock and unlock topic option. But it is defaulted to unlock topic, so it's just open for the whole time. But if you wanted to change it, you can unlock the topic for a specific date range and set those dates. You can also have it display in the calendar if you have dates. So then when they go to the course calendar and the content area, they'll see when the discussion is open. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. If you do want to set dates for things, you can make sure it displays in the calendar so that students know how long this thing is open for. It'll also appear in the topic description, so it'll be fairly obvious when it is open. We also have our release conditions that we've talked about. It's the same thing as everywhere else you can do release conditions. You can create and attach them, and then if you have existing ones you want to attach, you can do that as well. We talked about groups a little bit last week, and this is what you would do if you wanted to kind of backtrack and link an existing discussion topic to a group that you just created. You'd be able to restrict the topic and allow groups. So if I wanted this topic to be set for a specific group that I've already made, I can add groups and sections and then find my groups, but I'm pretty sure I deleted them all yesterday. I don't know why I did that. But you would see all of your group categories. So I had my final project groups, and then you would just select that group from that category, and they would have access to this forum and no one else would. Sorry, this topic and no one else would. I'm still getting used to the terminology. But that is the option that you have when you have groups and you want to assign them to topics. You can do that with this group and section restrictions, and that is in the restrictions tab. Then we have assessment. Oh, sorry, I changed something they didn't want me to change. If you click on assessment, this is where you can set up the discussion for grading. So if you want to grade these topics, then you can do so via the assessment tab. You would just need to create a grade item for it so that it appears in the grade book. So you can choose a grade item if you've already created all of your grade items, which is something you could do, and we'll talk about that in the following weeks. But if you want to create a grade item right here and now for the topic, which is actually what I recommend, you would just click new grade item, give it a name, and fill out all of your details. So we have the full name of the discussion topic. We have a short name, so it appears in the grade book in a more condensed fashion. With grades, you can do categories, so you can select categories. And then we have our grading schemes. So you can set the amount of points you want, whether the points can be exceeded or if they are actually part of a bonus sort of assignment. And then there's all these other wonderful options. But we will talk about all of the grading bits and bobs in week 6, but I just wanted to show you where you would go to set up the grade item for discussions. So in this assessment tab, we have that grade item set up, but we also have a score out of blank. So this is different than the max points, because if your max points for this discussion topic are 10 and you want the score to be out of 20, it'll do the math for you. So it doesn't have to be the same. It can be however you want the points divvied up, but just know that when you create the grade item, this maximum points can be different than the score out of blank. So do with that what you will. We also have the option to add rubrics. You can add rubrics within Brightspace, and once you make them, they are available to you. So I have created ones in the past, and I believe this free write rubric is for my assignments, so it kind of encapsulates everything. If you create one for assignments, you could use it in discussions too. So I believe we will be talking about that at some later time, but essentially what you would do is if you had one that you wanted to use, you could just check it and then add the selected rubric. Or if you wanted to create a new one, you would click this Create Rubric in New Window, and it gives you all of the fancy blocks for your rubric. So you can give it a name, you can add as many columns as you want or take them away, enter your criterion and your feedback in case they get that, that level of criterion correct, and then we have overall scores at the bottom. So I also know that Kat is working on a faculty course for Brightspace. So I believe this will be part of the advanced course. So she'll probably go into more detail with that. But there are definitely Brightspace videos on how to create rubrics. So if anyone is interested in that, I can send that out along with the recording of this session. So I will do that. But once you do these rubrics, I am now in a place I don't want to be anymore. So I want to go back. Click the back arrow until you find where you were. Then you realize this is a new window, so you X out of it. All right, so we're back to our discussion topic, and the last thing here on the assessment tab is the allow assessment of individual posts. So this is the closest equivalent that we have to when you would use the rating system in Moodle to grade discussions, if you ever did that. So this means that you can assess posts in the topic. So each user's topic is calculated using the method selected from the calculation drop-down list. So this is kind of grade related. Down here is the calculation drop-down list, and you can have an average post score. So you can score them all individually, and then whatever the average is their score for that discussion topic. Maximum post score, minimum post score, all of the fun things. So if you would like to assess individual posts instead of their overall contribution, then you have that option. And you can change that whenever you like, as long as you haven't already graded their discussion topic. So then once you're done with your topic and your properties, restrictions, and assessment, you can save and close it, and it will show up in your discussions list. So now we have, I have my forum, exploration, weekly discussions, and then test forum all the way at the bottom. So whenever you create a new forum, it goes all the way to the bottom, just like when you upload new things in the content tool. And same with the topics. It kind of adds to what's already there and puts it below the existing topics. So you can edit these whenever you like, just by clicking that context menu that we're so familiar with. You can edit the forums. You can also click the context menu for the topics and edit topics. And you can do all of the fun things. This is also where you would subscribe to the discussions. And if you subscribe to discussions, you can get little notifications when people post to them. So if you want to keep an eye on certain topics, you can do that. Do note that when you select an assessment option for the discussion topics, or any sort of options that we looked at, like the posting first or moderated forums, things like that, you will see them listed in the discussion topic itself. So for this writing process topic, I have it available from a certain date. So you can see it was available from last August. You can see that it includes assessment, and students will also see this, so they'll know it's graded. And then you can also see that you must post first before you see other things. So it's not like a mystery. You'll definitely see what you set for the topic before you go in and post for it. Same down here, we have includes assessment. And then in this one, we have that you must post first. So then when you click on the topic, it brings you in and you see the little description a little bit bigger here. And then students would click start a new thread, and that's when they would enter their subject and enter the content for that thread. So this would be the equivalent of them creating a discussion in Moodle. So this would be the prompt they're responding to, then they create their thread and students can reply to those threads. So they can interact with each other via responses. So they can use all of these fun tools like you can, so they can also do video notes. So if you want them to respond with videos, you just kind of tell them to click on that little play button first and then click add video note, and it should be pretty self-explanatory. You can also have them add images. They can also quick link to things, I'm pretty sure, but I may be wrong because I'm in an instructor view. But they do have insert stuff, insert images, and everything else you see here. Then you can also add attachments. They can also add attachments. So if you wanted them to upload a paper or some sort of like free write thing that they've written, you can have them do that as well. But are there any questions so far about discussions or anything I've talked about so far? All right.
Riley, I had a question. So the discussions, do they, like, I'm thinking compared to how Moodle appears, and I have my like discussion each week, do they appear in a weekly format? How does that work?
Well, you would need to create them. So you can designate them to be weekly and then add them to the individual modules so that they are in the weekly format in a way. But you will need to create each one that you want. So you can't just create one and have it set up for like each week. You would have to create them individually, if that makes sense.
Okay,
like,
I'll have to play around with it to try to figure it out. Thanks.
Yeah, like for example, I have the weekly discussions one here. I only have week 1, but I can set dates for it to be available so that it is for week 1. And then I can go in and click new and then new topic and then create my week 2 discussion, set it for a different set of dates, and go forth that way. So you just have to create each topic. But then when you go into the content tool, that's where you can pull them into the individual modules or weeks, if that's how you have it set up, so that it is visible for each week. There is a dedicated discussion topic. You just have to create them first. So good question. Anybody else have anything?
Riley, so if I decide to lock the discussions and then for some reason I want to extend the deadline, I can go back and unlock it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So if I went into the context menu here, so that downward caret, you can click edit topic, and that will bring up everything you already did to create it. So if you just hop on over to restrictions, you should see the locking options. So if you have it locked, you can always click it to unlock it, or then make it unlocked for a certain amount of time. So you can extend those dates as far as you need, even after the lock date has passed. So just make sure to save and close it, and then you'll be good.
Thank you.
Of course. Alrighty. So let me see. I think another thing I wanted to mention is the statistics tab up here, because it has some cool things going on. If you want like an at a glance of what is happening in your discussions, you can see in the statistics tab, you can look by user and see how many threads they've made, how many replies, how many they read, including their own, and how many were scored if you have them assessed. You can also click on forum and topics, and it will show you the same view, but by forum and topics. So in the exploration forum, we have 3 threads total, and those 3 are in the writing process topic, and so on and so forth. So you can look at a bunch of stats. If you want to make sure your students are actually replying to things, you can see who isn't and who is. And you can see who has read the different threads and who has not. So something to keep in mind. You can also manage your subscriptions up here. So if you subscribe to a whole bunch of them, you can see them. And then you can determine how you want to see the notifications. So do you want an instant one? Do you want it in the mini bar only? Or do you want it in like an activity summary with emails? But that's pretty much the discussions at a glance. But what you would do to bring it into the content tool is hop on over to content and then go to the week or module that you want, and then click on existing activities. And once you go there, you can click on discussions, and it brings up all of your discussions, but you do have to kind of drill down by forum first. So since I made this test forum, I'll click in and find my test topic. And once you click it, it adds to the bottom of your module. And here it is. So when the students are looking through your modules, they'll find that discussion topic and they'll give it a click. And once they do, it'll bring them right to the place where they can start a new thread. So if you have everything ported over into the content tool, it should be fairly easy for students to move around. But do note that they can also click on discussions and find them here. So it is in 2 places. Any questions before we move on to assignments?
Can you just go through, so you click on the content tool and then
you click on the module that you want to put the discussion in.
Right.
And then you click existing activities.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you were doing it in the other course building method, you would click upload create, sorry, and click new discussion. Then you just create it from scratch. So you have that option too.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. So now on to assignments. Assignments, I think, are slightly easier than discussions. I wanted to get the really beefy one out of the way because it's a lot of new stuff to interact with. But assignments is something very familiar. So what we're going to do is go to the assignments tool, as I've already clicked on. And here you can see we have a couple assignments that I've already made. And at the top of the assignments list, I have a category. So in assignments, you can create categories, but they're really only for your own benefit. I'm pretty sure if students came to the assignments tool, they would see them as well, and it breaks them up, helps you organize. But They're not mandatory by any means. But here I have like a free writes category, and under that I have a bunch of free write assignments. And if I wanted to add something like a longer paper, I can put that in its own category so that I know it's different. Maybe it has a different scoring method and everything, so I can kind of keep it straight for myself. You can see that there are a couple different icons that show up. So just like with the discussions, whatever you set on your assignments is visible in the icons next to the assignment name. So I can see with this little like badge that this includes assessment, so it has a grade item already. So that means it's in the grade book. So that's great news. This little key icon is for special access. So it is for those who need accommodations. We have our special access here, and I'll show you how to do that. This one has a grade item as well, and this one also allows students or allows me to anonymously mark. So it's not going to show me students' names when I am grading, so I know that that one is a little bit special. This third one is actually hidden, and it has a grade item. So the icons all mean different things, and you just hover your arrow over them to see what they mean. So I definitely didn't know that from memory. I had to kind of figure it out again. But say you want to create a category. So I'm going to click Edit Categories, and then we have Add at the top. So I'm going to do, so like literary analyses is another grouping of assignments. So I will create that category, and it puts it right beneath my free writes. You can reorder them here if you like, but I'm going to keep it as it is. I click on the Close button, and it brings me back to assignments. So then I can actually create a new assignment. So I click that big blue button, and it brings me to this assignments page. Now I will preface this by saying this is the new assignments setup, and I think a bunch of people do have it, but there's also the old assignments setup. So I'm going to keep the new one on just so you see what it looks like, but just know that the old assignments experience looks exactly like when you're setting up those discussion topics. So it has all the tabs at the top, and it has all the same features that we can see here. It just looks a little bit different. So this new style, I actually like a little bit better because it has things organized all in the same area, whereas with the discussion topic, we had to scroll back to the top of the page and make sure we finished out the tabs. Here, everything is right within view. So we can change our name for our assignment. So I can call it Literary Analysis 1. And then the default is for it to be ungraded. So that means there's no grade item because we're not grading it. But if you want to change that, you just click on ungraded, and it lets you add the amount of points you want to add. So if I want this to be a 50-point assignment, I can add that number. And just by adding points, it's going to create a grade item for us in the grade book. So there's no creating a new grade item like we did with the discussion topics. It's just already going to be created once we save this. So you can click on this in grades drop down, and you can actually choose. So if you already created the grade item, you can choose a different one, or you can remove it from grades entirely, or you can reset it to ungraded. So back to what it was before. I'm going to keep it with points, and I'm going to keep it so that it creates a grade item for me, just so it ports to the grade book all nice and easy. Don't have to worry about it. And the due date, you can either type it in with the month, day, and then the year, or you can click on it and it gives you a little click box calendar. So I'll set it for next week, and then it gives you an option to set a time. So I believe the default is 11:59 p.m., so right before midnight. Then we have our instructions box, which has a slightly different toolbar than every other text box we've looked at. It has the basics, though. It has your little formatting here, bold, italics, underlined, numbered and bulleted lists, but then we also have insert stuff, which looks a little bit different, but it's the same thing. So if you click on insert stuff, you have your video notes, and you have the option to upload any files from any of these areas. So you can even put a YouTube video in here if it's going to explain the assignment, so on and so forth. Here are some instructions for writing your paper. So you can type however much you want. You can also use these 4 little icons at the bottom to enhance your instructions. So you can upload a file this way. So if you're like, oh, here's an example of one that's been done, or here's the actual breakdown of it that I've typed in Word, don't want to type it in Brightspace, here's the assignment file. You can also attach a link to an existing activity. So this is like your quick links. Brings up the same menu, it just looks a little bit different. You also have the option to attach a web link. So if you're referencing an outside website, this is where you would do so. And then you have the attach from Google Drive option, which will make you sign into Google Drive, which I think I've done before, so it already brings up my Google Drive. But you can add any documents from Google Drive that you have if you use that. So those are options. And you can record audio and video. So pretty much your standard text box toolkit, but it looks a little bit different. So once you're done with all of the cosmetics bits of assignments, you would go over to these 3 sections, and you want to expand them. So if you click on the arrow, it expands it and gives you more options. So for availability dates and conditions, you have your start and end dates. These aren't necessarily mandatory because you already have a due date, but if you want it open from a certain period and ending maybe after the due date, if you allow for late submissions, this is where you can determine that, and it'll be available for students to see, so they kind of see the availability dates. We also have our release conditions here, so just as we've seen in previous places. But the important part that I want to highlight is the special access. So this is where you would set up your accommodations for students who require them. And if we click on Manage Special Access, it will open up a separate little page here. So we have 2 options. So if this is your standard special access use case, it'll be this first option, which is allow users with special access to submit outside the normal availability dates. So you get to set a new due date for them, set new availability dates, and it's only for certain students. The second option is allow the users that you're going to add to special access exclusive access to this assignment. So if it's only for a certain group of students, that's where you would select the second option. So if it's maybe a bonus assignment for students who aren't doing too well and you don't need everyone else to see it, but it's for them specifically, you can click that second option and add users to that special access. But usually people are going to use that first option. So this is when we would set new due dates for these students. So once you select that option, you want to add users to special access. You click on that and it gives you the option to set a new due date. So I'm going to send a new due date for maybe the 18th or the 19th. I'll set it for the 19th at a certain time. 11:59 sounds good. If I want to change the availability dates, I can, but I don't have to. Just know that if you do want to change any of these things, they do have to be checked. So I'm going to change the due date, so I have that checked. I change the due date, and then it'll give you your whole class list. I only have 1 student, but you will see all of your students. And you can search for them if you have certain students in mind, or if you just want to scroll through the list and check the box. You can check however many students need that special access and click Save. And once you do that, it'll give you a summary of what you just did. So all of the students who are in special access and what their new due date is. So then you click Save and Close. Though I do want to mention all the way over on the right, we have the pencil icon to change that before you save it or delete it if you made a mistake. So we'll click Save and Close. And then we have 1 user with special access highlighted over on the right. So you know that you added someone and that special access is applied to this assignment. Are there any questions about that or anything so far? Okay. So I'm going to close this up so I have a little more space to view the other sections. But then I'm going to click on Submission and Completion. And this is where we will actually determine the submission type and some other fun bits. So the submission type by default is file. So that means the students will upload a file from their computer or wherever it is, Google Drive. But then you have 3 other options, which are also available to you. You have text submissions. So it provides a text box in the submission area where students can just type. So for the free write assignments that I made them text submissions so that they can just open up the assignment, start typing away on the text box, and then just submit it that way. So not premeditated, you just go in and write. But file submission is defaulted because usually you want students to upload a file they've created. Text submission will give you that text box. on-paper submission is actually for if they submitted it to you in person, or if that's something you grabbed in person once we're back in normal times. That is an option as well. And then observed in person for maybe like a project or something like that. So you have the two like in-person options and the two virtual options. So I'm going to keep it on file, and it lets you choose how many files are allowed per submission, so unlimited or one file. If all the submissions are kept or only one is allowed, only the most recent one is kept. I will mention that when you change the submission type, it does change those options based on what type you've selected. So if I clicked on paper submission, there's nothing else to change because it's a physical submission. Same with observed in person. There's nothing else to change, except for this marked as completed area. So how else are you going to mark it complete? Because it's given to you in person. It could be marked as complete automatically on the due date. So just assuming that everyone handed it in, or automatically on evaluation. So if you come into Brightspace to evaluate it, or you enter the grade, then that's when it's marked completed. Or manually by the learners themselves, so the students, so they can mark it off too, if you want that. But those are mainly for the in-person submissions. Otherwise, the virtual ones are kind of self-explanatory. Once they upload it or type it in and submit it, that's when it's marked as complete. So you also have the option to get a notification email when you get submissions. If you want that, it might be a little overwhelming, but you can enter your email if you want to get an email when someone submits to your assignment. I'm going to close that up and then go to evaluation and feedback, which has some of the same things we saw in the discussion topic. So we have the ability to add a rubric, except here you can either create a new one or add an existing one. It's in the same little button. So you can choose which one you want to go to, and it looks the same as it did with the discussions. Here, there's the learning objectives, which we aren't really going to talk about today, but they are in process. Then we have the annotation tools. So this makes those tools available if you're doing virtual submissions. That just means when you're going to grade your assignments, if you have a file submission, it'll change it to a PDF, and you'll be able to add little sticky notes or comments. So if you have this box checked, you get all of those tools when you're grading the assignment. And then you also have the option for anonymous marking. So if you don't want to see students' names, then you can do that as well. There's also the Turnitin integration, but I'll admit I'm not too well versed on that, but it does exist, so it's still there. I know Moodle had it as well. My understanding is that you would just click Manage Turnitin. I don't think you need an account through them because it's connected to Brightspace, but I could be wrong. But that is where you would find it in the evaluation and feedback area. So before I click Save and Close, does anyone have any questions about it so far? Okay, sounds good. Oh, go ahead.
So I usually grade papers using track changes in Word. Is there something that would be similar to that here?
Yes, actually. So I'm going to save and close this so I can show you. There is the option to import feedback files. So that would be what you're talking about. I'm pretty sure that that would be within the assignment itself. So honestly, let me look through my notes real quick. I know I wrote it down. So after the creation, you could add the feedback files. I'm pretty sure that would be if you were viewing submissions from the context menu, and then you can add feedback files. We found it. So what you would do is when you go to actually grade the assignment, I'll hop back just so we can start from scratch. Once you actually go to the assignment, you'd click on that little caret icon, the context menu, and click View Submissions. So this is also how you would go to grade these, which we'll talk about in a couple weeks. But here is where you can add feedback files, and you can add a zip file and upload it this way. And then I believe, I haven't done it myself, but I feel like you'd be able to assign the different feedback files to the different submissions that they apply to. But maybe before we get to the grading week, I will actually add some assignments and try it out myself and see how it works. But that's where you'd be able to do that, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Alrighty. This is actually a good place to be because when you do end up going to grade your stuff, you can actually see all of your submissions. You can either view it by users or by submissions. But a really cool thing here is that you can email the users that haven't submitted yet. So if we're like a day out from the due date, you can click email users without submissions, and it adds all of your students that haven't submitted yet in the BCC so they can't see each other. And you can send out an email saying like, hey, it's due tomorrow, make sure to get your assignment in. And it only goes out to those students who haven't submitted yet. So that's a nifty little automatic tool there if you want to kind of prod the students. And that is available in your view submissions little option there. But for assignments, I feel like that's pretty much the meat and potatoes of it. I will mention that this more actions button does let you reorder things. So if you want to reorder how these things are set up, you're more than welcome to. You can also see the event log. So if you are like me and deleted a bunch of nonsense assignments, you can restore them whenever you need. So even though they're deleted, I can still restore most of them, if not all of them. So that was in the event log option in more actions, and you can see all of these things. So that's pretty much it for assignments. And just like what we did with the discussions, if you want to add it into content, you would go to your module of choice and then click existing activities. Assignments is the first one, and just click on your assignment and it adds it right to the bottom. And any instructions you added are part of that little resource that you just added. So everything is available, including when it's due and at what time. So students will see that as well. Now I will mention, if you are the instructor, and you are, if you click on these assignments, you do not see the upload button because you're not a student. This is actually what you'll see. So it looks a little bit different. And in that case, if you want to make sure that it's set up correctly, you can actually click on your account and view as student, which I've shown before. But then if I were to go back to that content area and click on that assignment, I believe it was down in one of these. I don't remember which one, but I'll click on an assignment anyhow, whatever one I can click on. If I click on an assignment and it is a text or an upload submission, I can see that upload button as a student viewer. So you can just make sure that it looks right, or you can see how to actually show your students where to upload the files. I had a couple of questions about that before, so that is how you would do that. Alrighty. So moving right along with 15 minutes to go, we have quizzes. So the quizzes tool is actually a little bit hidden. So for this, I'm going to show you where it is for you, because on my nav bar, it is actually very visible. But for most courses, it is under Tools and then Quizzes. And that's because Kat and I attended a Brightspace conference last year, and their suggestion and recommendation is to keep quizzes in the tools list, because if students go into the quizzes tool and they see quizzes that they aren't actually prepared to fill out yet, or they're not actually ready for, then it can get a little stressful and things like that. So especially if you have your midterm and final already in there, it's oh, that's too much. So we have it in the tools menu, so it's still there for you to look at. And when you click on that quizzes tool, it brings you to the list of quizzes you have, if you have any already in here. So I am actually going to bop back over to my test course, click on quizzes, and show you how to just navigate this tool. So again, we have categories, just like we did with assignments. It's really only for you. So if you want to put quizzes in one and then exams in another, that's completely optional. We do have question library up here at the top. It's a little bit hidden, but it is exactly as you would expect from the Moodle question library. It's exactly the same. It does look a little bit different, but it operates the same. So when you are porting your Moodle content over into Brightspace and including your question bank, this is where it's going to go. It's going to go right in the question library. It might have a weird name like this. Like I didn't name it top, but I'm pretty sure that's what it came in as, because when I click on it, I actually get default for ETS 200, which was a course I had over in Moodle. So I did port it over a couple times because I was doing trainings. So when I click on this folder, I actually have all of the questions and nonsense questions that I used in my Moodle course. So I have all those questions available to me when I create quizzes. So if you imported your question bank, all your questions are right here in the question library. And when you're making quizzes, you can pull from this library as well. So just assume that anything that has a question mark in front of it is a question. You can click on it to look at it and edit it. You can see over in the right side, it tells you the type of question it is. So we have some multiple choice, so true, false, some matching, written response. So you can kind of see what they're like. We also have these folders, which means you can click on them to open them up. So for quiz 1, I had these 4 difficult questions, like what color is the sky? And you can just click on any question to edit it if you no longer like how it's worded, or if you want to check what answers you provided, just give it a click and you can see the question in all its glory. So for this one, we had what color is the sky? The answer is blue, but I provided green and purple. We've randomized the answer order and how many points is it worth. So it also provides you with a preview over on the right. So as you're creating questions, which we will see in a little bit, you'll see how they're actually going to appear in the quiz right on the right-hand side. So that's kind of nice. So I'm going to cancel out, but I just wanted to show you the question library real quick, because our recommendation is to create your questions in the library so that you can then pull them into the quizzes. You can definitely create your questions in the quizzes themselves, and it works just fine. But we do recommend the question library so that they're all in a central place, and you can kind of break them up by topic or by unit, depending on what you're doing. And you can also pull them in as like a question pool. So you can create like a pool of questions so that in a quiz, you can then pull like a random 3. So then each student kind of gets random questions and it prevents cheating and all of that fun stuff. Before I pop out of the question library, I do want to show this import button. So if you have a file from a publisher, this is probably where you're going to go to import those questions. So when you click on import and upload a file, it'll actually ask you for a certain format, so either CSV, which they do have a template for, and then a zip file. I'm pretty sure this download template is actually for creating questions. I'm just opening it to make sure. Yeah, it's a bit much, but it is an option. If you are feeling like making all of your questions in a Excel workbook and uploading it that way, by all means, but I don't know if I could do it. But that is an option. And when we get the learning repository like up and going and people are using it, you can also import questions from the learning repository. So if people have shared questions that you think are relevant to your quiz, you can import them and it'll be great. So I'm going to go back to the quizzes tool and actually show you how to create a quiz. So we're going to click on new quiz and it'll open up our new quiz area. And it looks just like the discussion topic creation. So very familiar looking. So this will be my quiz number 2, because I already have quiz 1. I have no categories and I don't really feel like adding one, so I'm not going to. But if you did feel like it, click add category and it just lets you put in a name. So pretty self-explanatory. Then you have add and edit questions. So it's like hopping right into it. If you click add and edit questions, you get the question editor and you get these 2 options. So you can add a question from scratch. That's the word. You can also add a section. So if you're going to section off your quiz, you can do that as well. And if you want to add a question pool, so that was what I was talking about with the random assortment of questions from a certain folder in the question library, you can do that too. You can also import from the question library. So if you wanted to pull from your already existing questions, you can do that over here in import. And you can also do the learning repository and files as well from here. So anything you could do in the question library, you could do right here too. But I'm going to create one from scratch just so we can go through it. Each of them have different requirements, as you could imagine, but we're going to start out with like a multiple choice. Maybe we'll look at fill in the blanks, and then that'll probably be it, because true and false is pretty self-explanatory. You enter a statement, hit true or false if it's, whichever answer is correct. Written response, you would just put in a prompt, and you could provide like auto grading terms and things like that, but it's a bit advanced. So what we're going to do is a multiple choice. So when I click on multiple choice, I still get the option to change my question type at any time before I start typing. We also have some options over here, like I can add a hint or some feedback based on what they answer, or a short description, maybe if I need that. So my question text allows me to do some different things. Like we saw in the assignments, we have insert stuff, so I can create a video to explain my question if I want. We also have like the symbols and such for graphical equations and chemistry and all that fun stuff. So my question will be, what is the color, or what is my favorite color? We won't get too crazy. So my options are then listed down here, and you get 4, but you can add an answer to add more options. So I can do green, and you also get these tools as you type in your answers. So you can add videos if you like, images, things like that. Green, blue, pink, and purple. Also notice that you can drag these options around. So if you don't like how they're ordered, you can just drag them around. And then you do have to mark which one is the correct answer. So in my case, it's green. And you can randomize this answer order. So if you don't care how they're presented to students, you could just randomize them, but green will always be the right answer. You can put however many points it's worth down here, and then you can click save and new, so you can create a new question right after saving this one, or you can save and copy it if you liked the format of it and you want to keep it, or you can just click save and it brings you back to the quiz creation page. So I'll click save and new so we can go to the next question type I want to show. You can see it saved successfully, so we have our question already in there, which is great. Our next kind is going to be fill in the blanks, because it is a little bit different. For the fill in the blanks, you can give it a title just so it shows up in the question library / quiz as a certain thing so you know what it is. So maybe like water bottle question, because that's what my question is going to be about. It's going to have a worth of 3 points. You can set difficulties. So when you do the question pool, you could be like, I want questions of difficulty 1 pooled into my quiz. So you can get kind of nitty gritty about it. But you can also insert an image as well and a description of that image. But then down here with the question text, we have add blanks and add text. So the text itself will be what you're providing to the student, and the blank will be what they're providing to you. So for the text, it'll be something like the color of my water bottle is, and then blank number 1 will be what they have to provide. So the answer is yellow. So that is the answer. And it could be case insensitive. So if it's capital or lowercase, it does not matter. It is correct if they put yellow. You could put case sensitive, so it has to be all lowercase yellow. And regular expression is a bit advanced, so I'm not going to touch on it. Again, Kat's going to put that in that advanced course. But case insensitive is usually how I would go if it's just a term like the word yellow. You can add more text if you want to continue that question. I don't know why it keeps bumping me back up. But otherwise, you can just kind of delete anything that's extra. So I'm going to delete that extra text because I only want the 1 blank. If you need to add more, you can add a blank and add some text if you need. So if you have like multiple fill in the blanks you want to add to this question, you can do that right here. But otherwise, you could just click save. Yeah, and it'll put your question here in the question list for your quiz. So once you're done like adding questions, you can add more from here, or you can import from that question library like I mentioned. So I'll just show you that real quick. I have this folder here Then you expand this folder, like wherever you need the question from. And then I will check the boxes next to the questions I actually want to import, and then click import. And it puts it right in for me. So it's quite beautiful. It's actually really exciting. So you can also, when you're in here, you can tell that something's in the question library because you imported it, but also because it says that it is. These two I created in the quiz itself. So if you wanted to create questions in the quiz, but also move them to your, what's it called, to the question library, there is a way to do that. I thought it was in here, but it is not. But it is in the quiz tool where you can import the questions back into the question library so you can have them for future exams. But now that I have all of my things here, I can preview them if I want to see all the questions in action, or I can click back to settings for quiz 2, so we can go back to the creation of the quiz. So I have my questions here. I can also go on and create a description or an introduction for the quiz. So when the students click on the quiz name in the content tool, they will see this description. There is also a page header and footer for every page in the quiz. So if you wanted to put a header or footer in there, like your class name or something like that, you can. But otherwise, the next thing you would have to do is go up to all of these beautiful tabs. Restrictions has your special access, which is super important. It also has your due dates. So you can set your due dates here. And again, you can use the calendar picker to select your times and your dates. You can also do your release conditions, but you also can set your timing here. So this is a 120-minute quiz with 3 questions. You can change it however you want. You can have it enforced, so it actually like tells you, hey, this quiz is over, or it could be recommended. But the special access is the same kind of thing as the assignments, except with quizzes, since they are timed, there is like special accommodations for that specifically. So we can allow selected users special access to the quiz, or allow only users with special access to see the quiz. So same kind of deal as the assignments. So if I select this first option, this is the equivalent of giving them extra time to this quiz compared to the rest of the students. So once I click on special access, I can give it a new due date if I want to give it a new date and time. I can change the timing. So I can make a recommended time limit of maybe 150 minutes instead of 120. So you can do it however you see fit and however is required. You can override the amount of temps allowed if you like, and then you select the students. So kind of like the assignments, except you get to change timing as well. It brings you back to restrictions, and you can see your little changes here. And then again with the assessment tab, it's the same thing with the grade items that we saw in discussion topics. You can allow the attempt to be set as graded immediately upon completion, which is great for if you have a quiz that's all multiple choice and it has like one correct answer. So it could be auto-graded and set right to the grade book. You can also, we said the grade items here, but you can also adjust your attempts. So if you have multiple attempts, you need to kind of specify, or if it's unlimited, you can change that here. And then if you have multiple attempts, what is the ruling for that attempt? Is it the highest one that they get the score for, or is it the average of all? Everything like that. We also have submission views, which is particular to how the student sees the quiz after it's done. So if you want them to see the answers to the questions, this is where you're going to specify that. So if you wanted to have them see the answers and like the correct answers, if they got something wrong, you're going to want to add a submission view and then name it accordingly. And this will exist for your other quizzes as well. So once you create the submission view, you can apply it to other quizzes. But I just want to show you down at the bottom here where it says view details. You can say, does it show the questions like the submission view when they're done? You can click yes, and you can show all questions with user responses. You can even show the question answers along with their responses. And you can show the question score as well if you want, or you don't have to show any of it. You can also show the score. If you want to show a class average, you can, and the score distribution as well. So that is all in the submission view, and you can change that at any time. So if you forgot to put something in there and the student is like, I don't see the answers to the questions, you can come back in here and change that and it'll apply for everybody. So I'm not going to save that, but otherwise, I think that's about it. I know it's exactly 11, but there was a lot to go through. We will talk about how to grade the quizzes in 2 weeks, in week 6. But just like with the other 2 things, discussions and assignments, to port them into content, you would go to the module you want to put it in, click existing activities, and then quizzes is down here. You select your quiz, and then there it is. And it has its due date there. If you have a description for it, it'll show up. But then the student just clicks on the quiz and off they go. Are there any questions about any of the quiz stuff or anything at all?
No, thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad you guys came, and I'm glad you stuck around. So I'm going to stop the recording.